Hey Lakers family, this is Lakers News Fan Report checking in with you, and I'm telling you right now, there is a quiet move on the board that says more about this new Luka Doncic era in Los Angeles than any viral headline you've seen all week. A move that doesn't scream Blockbuster on the ticker, but screams culture, timing, and pure basketball sense for a franchise that finally decided to stop living only off nostalgia and start building, piece by piece, a sustainable contender around its present and its future. Since the night the trade became real and Luka put on the purple and gold, everything changed. The way the league looks at us, the way front offices talk about our window, the way every role player understands that playing here now means orbiting around a generational playmaker at 26 and an all-time legend at 40 who has to be managed with surgical care if we want him sharp in May and June. And you can feel, game by game, that the Lakers' brain trust is operating differently. Smarter staggering, more Luka control of the offense, LeBron picking his spots, a 5-2 start that already looks more coherent than some of the chaos we've watched in recent seasons, but also some cracks that anybody honest enough to study this team frame by frame can see. Stretches where the second unit loses shape, possessions where there's no adult guard to slow the tempo or speed it up with purpose, defensive trips where communication dies, and it's obvious we're missing one more voice with mileage, toughness, and humility to live in the shadows of stars and still control the temperature of the game. That's exactly where the name surfacing now starts to make sense. And I'm not talking about some fantasy package or empty social media list. I'm talking about a real veteran profile on a $2.9 million type number out of Minnesota that lines up with what serious reporting has hinted and with what this front office has shown it values. Guys who know who they are, guys who defend, guys who respect the hierarchy but aren't afraid to speak inside the locker room. Before I drop who it is, remember this context. We have Luka locked in as the engine through his new extension. We have LeBron trying to navigate another season with a fragile body, but a still brilliant mind. We have a coaching staff installing an offense built on Luka's reads, two-man actions, smart spacing, and tempo control. And we have a Western Conference where every contender throws waves of aggressive bards at you, trying to expose the softest link on the floor. Our margin is thin. We cannot afford empty, non-Luka, non-LeBron minutes. We cannot afford soft perimeter defense in a playoffs where one bad matchup flips the series. And we absolutely cannot afford immaturity at the back end of the rotation. That's why a certain podcast moment from an 11-year veteran guard hit so hard when he went on his own platform and said out loud that it might be time for the Lakers to start thinking with cold logic about LeBron's timeline and commit, sooner or later, to a project fully centered on Luka. He wasn't just throwing heat for clicks. He was articulating the exact strategic tension that exists today in El Segundo. You don't say that as a clueless outsider. You say that as a guy who has lived in real locker rooms, shared the floor with stars, seen teams wait too long to pivot, and understands that the modern NBA punishes romantic decisions. Now imagine bringing that guy into this locker room on a clean number that doesn't hurt your flexibility. The potential target, as you've already connected, is Austin Rivers of the Minnesota Timberwolves. 6'4", battle-tested, son of a coach, playoff experiences in multiple systems, enough handle to initiate, enough shooting to space, enough defensive pride to take tough assignments, and zero illusions that he's coming to Los Angeles to be anything other than a professional role player. That is exactly why this Lakers position to land Rivers rumor refuses to die. On paper, it fits the layers that matter. From a cap perspective, his projected number is the definition of a surgical move. You're not touching Luka, LeBron, Marcus Smart, DeAndre Ayton, Austin Reeves, or your key assets. You're not locking into ugly long-term money. You're buying optionality. From a rotation standpoint, he plugs very real gaps. Non-Luka minutes? Rivers can actually get you into sets, stabilize pace, find shooters, keep the ball from sticking, and prevent those brutal 3-minute scoring droughts that have haunted this team. Next to Luka, he can bring the ball up against pressure, letting Luka catch on the wing or at the elbow and attack with an advantage instead of pounding from the backcourt every trip. Next to LeBron, he becomes that point of attack guard who takes the tougher matchup so LeBron can read, roam, and conserve energy. He's not here to dominate usage. He's here to make sure the star's energy is preserved for the possessions that decide seasons. Defensively, this becomes even more interesting. Look at the West, guards and wings everywhere trying to create switches and pull your slowest defender into space. Rivers gives you another body you trust to chase, to fight over screens, to talk through coverages, to execute a switch without panicking. Those 2 or 3 extra solid possessions per quarter, where he blows up an action, funnels correctly to help, or just absorbs contact without fouling, never trend on social, but they are exactly what keep your stars out of foul trouble and your leads from evaporating. And that matters even more when you remember where LeBron is physically and how much investment the organization has already made in Luka as the franchise axis. Intangibles might be the biggest selling point. This locker room has just lived through a historic identity shock. Anthony Davis out, Luka Doncic in. A new offensive focal point, a new political center inside the building. You don't manage that by surrounding your core only with prospects and quiet veterans. You manage that with guys who understand pressure markets, who aren't intimidated by star power, who translate coach speak into player speak, and who can call out a mistake without detonating the room. Rivers grew up inside this league. He's been the young gun, the rotation piece, the guy fighting for minutes. He's defended stars, played under scrutiny, survived different roles. When someone with that background also shows he's willing to publicly touch sensitive topics like how long you build around a legend, it tells you he's comfortable with hard conversations, the same kind of conversations that a serious contender has to have internally about effort, discipline, and sacrifice. Bring that into a group led by Luka, supported by LeBron, reinforced by Smart's edge and Ayton's size, and you're quietly strengthening your cultural spine. On the court, picture a playoff series where the opponent is hunting mismatches all night. Instead of running Luka or an older LeBron through every screen, you can throw Rivers into those actions for stretches. Let him absorb some of that punishment. Let him be the guy who gets scored on late shot clock instead of your franchise cornerstone picking up cheap fouls. Picture those brutal, non-star minutes on the road in Denver or Phoenix. With Rivers in the game, you're far less likely to see the offense disintegrate into aimless ISOs or hot potato possessions. He's seen too much to let that slide. His career averages won't headline a graphic, but the tape shows a guard who understands spacing, angles, and when to simply get the ball back to the right hands.
And now let's layer this on top of the actual pieces already in-house, because this isn't happening in a vacuum. You've got Marcus Smart bringing Defensive Player of the Year pedigree and backcourt toughness. You've got DeAndre Ayton as the big bet in the middle, trying to prove he can anchor a contender again. You've got Austin Reeves as a trusted connector with chemistry on and off the ball. You've got wings like Rui Hachimura giving you size and scoring. And then you've got Luka as the offensive compass for all of it. That's a strong core, but look closely. Smart is going to be asked to toggle between starter, closer, and tone center. Reeves has to carry creation and spacing. Ayton needs touches and confidence. LeBron's usage must be rationed like gold. What you cannot afford is to burn Smart out chasing every guard, to ask Reeves to solve every second unit possession, and to drag Luka into unnecessary minutes because there is no trusted veteran behind them. Rivers, in that sense, is the buffer. He is the guy who can soak up those matchup minutes when Smart gets into foul trouble, who can share ball handling so Reeves can attack more as a finisher, who can function as an emergency starter without the team's identity falling apart, who can check into a hostile road playoff game and not look shocked by the moment. His career numbers won't blow anybody away, but the film shows a guard who can shoot enough to be respected, drive just enough to punish soft closeouts, and defend with a seriousness that coaches love. Surround a high-usage genius like Luka with role players who understand spacing rules, timing, and defensive communication, and you maximize every dollar on your cap sheet. Spend those slots on players who either can't hold up defensively or need the ball too much, and you undercut your own superstar. That's why I'm treating this potential Rivers to Lakers move as a litmus test of how refined this front office's thinking really is in the first full phase of the Luka project. Do you keep stacking the right personalities, the right specialists, or do you chase another shiny but redundant name just to make noise? Everything we've seen since February, the Doncic trade, the extension locking him in, the Smart signing, the Ayton gamble, tells me they're at least trying to think in layers. On-ball creation, defense, size, toughness, playoff habits. Rivers fits that language. Even if he only plays 12, 16 minutes on most nights, those are minutes where you're not throwing away possessions, where Luka can breathe on the bench, where LeBron doesn't have to check back in early just to keep the game under control. There is, of course, a flip side, and I owe you that straight. If Rivers' shot completely abandons him or his lateral quickness has slipped more than the tape suggests, then you're talking about a low-usage guard opponents ignore on offense, and in that case the experiment ends quickly. But that's the beauty of this rumor. The risk profile is tiny compared to the potential strategic value. You're not locking the franchise into a bad multi-year commitment. You're not closing the door on a bigger deadline move. You're making the kind of calculated, reversible bet that serious organizations make when they trust their scouting and their culture. For a team sitting at the intersection of Luka's prime and LeBron's last dance, those are exactly the kind of edges you chase. So here's my direct professional read on the heart of this story before we close. If the Lakers execute and bring Austin Rivers from the Timberwolves to Los Angeles on that manageable number, I see it as an intelligent, disciplined, championship-focused depth move that strengthens the rotation behind Luka Doncic, protects LeBron James' body in minutes, raises the defensive communication level, and reinforces the message that this franchise is fully committed to smart roster building, not just chasing headlines. If they choose another path, the blueprint should still look like this: battle-tested, self-aware guards who elevate the floor of the team without demanding to be the headline. Now, I want your voice in this because you're part of this project with me. Would you greenlight Austin Rivers in this locker room as one of the voices and pieces of this new era, or would you rather the front office hold that spot for a bigger name later in the season? How does this possible signing fit, in your eyes, into the broader strategy of maximizing Luka's prime while still respecting what LeBron represents in purple and gold? Drop your opinion down below. Agree, disagree. Bring your read, because I go through your comments and they help shape the debates we bring back here on the channel. And if you want to keep getting fast updates, serious breakdowns, and clear analysis about every move, rumor, and adjustment of our Lakers, make sure you're subscribed, turn on your notifications, and stay with me here on Lakers News Fan Report, where we ride together through every chapter of this new era, chasing the next banner in Los Angeles.